Hello friends. Is your coupler tired and ugly like this one? Well, if it is, you're in luck. Today's video, we're going to show you how to turn this ugly coupler into this beautiful coupler. All you need is a little magic grinding dust and a little elbow grease. Probably a whole lot of elbow grease depending on how bad it's welded on. So in today's video, we're going to show how to replace an A-frame coupler. As you can see, this coupler here, it has seen better days. The jack has been ripped off of it, has some cracking. The latch mechanism is broke off. It does have some slack in the coupler itself. This looks like the original coupler to the trailer, but it's got a bunch of miles on it. So we're going to cut this dude off and we're going to replace it with another coupler. Many times couplers are overlooked. It's something you do need to check because after all, this is all that holds this trailer to your tow vehicle. So you need to inspect it. If it's in bad shape, get that thing replaced. All right, we're going to get ready to remove this A-frame coupler. I'm going to go over a few methods that we use here in the shop. I'm going to tell you what I use. None of them are wrong, none of them are right. It's just really whatever you have available to you. If you have a grinder or if you have a torch, there's no reason to go out and buy anything. Hopefully this will help you if you have to remove your own coupler. And maybe if you don't feel like you're qualified to remove your own coupler and you need to take it to the shop, it'll tell you what to look for in the repair and maybe help you understand why it does cost so much to get it done, because it does take some time and it takes some skill. So one of the methods is the oxygen acetylene torch or a propane oxygen torch. You can use that. Just a simple grinder or a grinder with a thin disc. And I'm going to show these three methods. I personally cut them off with a plasma cutter. I gouge or wash the weld out. I'm not going to show that in this video because not everybody has a plasma cutter readily available for their use. So we're going to start with the grinder method and let's make some sparks. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to use a grinder. You want to be sure to sacrifice the coupler, not the frame of the trailer. Try not to cut into this frame. Try only to cut into the existing weld and the coupler itself. That's looking pretty good there. Looks like we got most of the weld out. You can leave a little bit of weld because it will crack, so it's better to leave a little extra and have to go back than cut it too deep. So we're going to go ahead and grind this vertical portion down next. All right, looks like most of it. Now we're going to switch over to the thin discs. This is not my preferred method to use, but you can do this if that's all you have available to you. We're going to make a cut horizontal just right above the weld through the coupler body, not the frame. You have to be sure not to go too deep. We'll make that cut, so let's get after it. And again, you don't have to go all the way through. You can leave a little bit of coupler material. And when we go to knock it off with a hammer or chisel, whatever you have, it will go ahead and fracture off. We like a little bit up here at the front though. All right, I think that's pretty good. So now we're going to cover the next method. This is what I would prefer. Second to the plasma cutter. If you have a plasma cutter, it's the same concept. We're just going to use the oxygen acetylene torch, and we're going to cut this other side off, then we'll show you how to remove it. All right, we're going to move over to the other side, and we're going to use our torch to remove this. One thing I didn't cover, before you start cutting your coupler off, make sure you remove all your wiring so you don't burn it up. So I'm going to get my 7-way cord pigtail speedy removal tool. So now that we got that off, this trailer's getting a full rewire, don't worry. If you're not doing a full rewire, just to unclamp it or remove it back so that you don't burn it up. So let's cut this thing off with our torch. And so what we're gonna do, again, we're gonna sacrifice the coupler. We're basically just gonna take and wash this weld out all the way around. One thing that I prefer to do, and I will do it after we get this weld washed out, is we're gonna put this coupler into 3 pieces to make it a little easier to remove, and I'll show you that at the very end. You want to preheat it just on the coupler itself so you don't mess up the frame of the trailer. You just kind of want to feather your torch. This does have some rust underneath it, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, and if you're working on an older trailer, that's going to be normal. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom so I don't get a bunch of slag down in that cut. The bottom is the hardest part to take off, in my opinion. Let's do the vertical. Nobody can ruin a good tip like I can. Okay, now I'm going to show you what I do on every coupler. And before we cut that, some couplers are welded underneath and some are welded vertically on the inside here. This one is welded here. We're gonna make that cut out here. We're gonna split this into 3 pieces just to make it a little easier to remove. It's just got a little bit of weld on the inside, so I'm going to zip that off real quick with a torch. Okay, so now we're going to grab a hammer and a chisel and see if we have any more cutting to do. Next, you want to get you a good sharp chisel and the absolute biggest hammer that you can find. No, we're just kidding. We're going to use a ball peen hammer for this. So we're going to try to hit it without the chisel to start with on the torch side that we cut. So you can see where they notched this down. Not a big fan of that. I would never do that here in the shop. You can see most of this weld is gone. I'm going to go ahead and dress that up a little bit with a torch, then we'll go back and clean it up with a grinder. This coupler was welded here and vertically. This is okay. I never weld here. I've found over the years when you do the horizontal then a vertical right here, it can cause some cracking right here, so I just weld the outside of the coupler. So let's see if we can get the side I ground and use the wire or the thin disc to cut off. It will probably be a little harder than the torch, but let's see how it comes off. It may still have a little bit of weld in there, so we can knock it loose. Yeah, it's got just a little bit of a weld left, so I'm just going to knock that off real quick. This is why I like to remove it in 3 pieces. That way, if you do have a piece that's hanging, it's a little bit easier. All right, and come around to this side with the camera, and you can see what was left of that weld right there. It just fractured without getting into this. So that's all the weld with a little couple of material on it, and you can see we didn't get into the frame anywhere. So now we'll take the grinder and a flap disc and go back and clean this up. While we're waiting on the torch side to cool down some, we'll clean the driver's side up here, get it ready. Then once that cools off, we'll get that ready. Now that we got most of the weld off, we're going to switch over to a 40 grit flap disc, and we're going to finish cleaning it up. Make sure we got a good clean area. Now that we got our existing tongue cleaned up, we got everything ground down, ready to accept the new coupler. We've also taken the new coupler. It's very important to make sure you get any paint, primer, powder coat off of it in any of the weld areas. Something we didn't show earlier is we did measure the old coupler before we took it off to make sure it was square. We did that from multiple points across the trailer. It was right on the money. We have done the same thing with the new coupler. I had our cameraman help me with that. Once we got it squared, I've made me some marks on here just for the ease of the video because I don't have that second set of hands to help me. To make sure it's square as we get ready to tack it in place. You can clamp this in place depending on how it fits. This was actually fitting pretty well. Just know that each one of them is different. Sometimes you do have to clamp them down. You'll even have to maybe bend the coupler some to make it match the tongue or vice versa. So let's get this thing tacked on, then we'll weld it out. All right, we've got the old coupler cut off. We've got the tongue cleaned up, ground down, ready to install the new coupler. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video to see the final finish on that. Also shows how to install a 7-way trailer plug. Remember, if you have any comments, leave those down below. If these videos are helpful, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to check out our channel for other trailer repair videos, tips, and tricks. Well, let's get back to it and get this wrapped up. We've got everything welded out. We've given it time to cool down. Everything looks good. We're going to shoot it with a couple coats of primer. Now that the primer's dry, all this trailer really lacks is just installing the 7-way plug. If you need help with that, click on the video that's on the screen that shows how to install a 7-way trailer plug. Remember, if you like our videos, click to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our trailer repair videos, tips, and tricks.